Rati, could you please remove the chair from the teacher's table so she can stand up?
Oh, sorry. Okay, guys, we're going to start the debate. Please close all of your laptops, please. Everyone's ready? Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Warm greetings to everyone present. First, I would like to extend my respect to esteemed educators, fellow debaters, government, and also the opposition team, and fellow organizers, and also the Honorable Ms. Luna, who is watching through the screen right now. Welcome to today's debate section. First of all, let me introduce my team, who will be the organizers for today's debate session. Sitting right behind the camera is Sati as the camera person and also the timekeeper. And the educators right behind the class, Ardi and Pandu, who is ready to judge you guys. So, and me, myself, my name is Jasmine. I will be the chairperson for the entry for today's debate session. So, the motion for today's debate is this House believes that zoos do more harm than good for wildlife conservation, which is related to sustainable development goals in life on Mars. And this debate will consist of two teams, the government team, which agrees with the motion, and also the opposition team, which disagrees. And each team will present three main speakers, followed by one reply speech. And let me remind you guys, each speaker speaks for 3 to 5 minutes, and timekeeper will stop the speaker when they have reached 5 minutes. As for the reply speech, speak for 2 to 3 minutes only, and timekeeper will stop the speaker when they have reached 3 minutes. And I kindly remind all participants to speak clearly, stay within the time limit, and respect each other's argument. And without further delay, let us begin. I now invite the first speaker of the government team to present their arguments. For the first speaker, the time and place is yours. Good morning, honorable educators, members of the opposition, and everyone present. I'm Wilma, the first speaker of the government team with my friends Kyla and Nadia as speakers 2 and 3. Today, we as the government team firmly stood by the motion, this House believes that zoos do more harm than good for wildlife conservation. Let me begin by grounding today's debate in a global context. The Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015, serve as a universal call to protect this planet. In particular, SDG 15, or Life on Land, aims to conserve terrestrial ecosystems, help biodiversity loss, and promote the sustainable use of natural habitats. This motion challenges whether zoos, as we know them today, truly support that goal or stand in its way. To be clear, our side is not against the conservation. We are against outdated and ineffective methods that claim to protect animals but ultimately fall short, and zoos are one of them. Now moving on to our arguments. First, zoos fail to address the root causes of wildlife conservation issues, habitat destruction, poaching, illegal wildlife trade, or human-wildlife conflict. These are the real threats to endangered species. Keeping a few animals in artificial enclosures thousands of kilometers from their native home does nothing to solve these larger problems. If anything, it creates a false sense of progress. While donors and visitors believe they are helping wildlife, the actual ecosystem continue to degrade. Conservation must focus on protecting animals in the wild, in their natural habitats, not confining them in man-made prisons. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Conservation Biology analyzed North American conservation translocations and found that zoos contributed animals for release in only 14% of published cases. Furthermore, they were involved in 25% of captive breeding, programs linked to these translocations. These findings expose the minimal and selective role zoos play in conservation. Conservation is often used as a justification for captivity rather than a genuine priority or outcome. Second, many zoos are profit-driven and have only a limited impact on real conservation. Let's be honest, zoos are businesses. Their main goal is to attract visitors and not save species. That's why you'll see lions, pandas, giraffes, but not the endangered species. Animals are chosen for their entertainment value, not their conservation need. According to a 2021 report by the Born Free Foundation, UK zoos spend an average of just 4.2% of their income on in-situ conservation projects. The same report highlighted that zoos often invest heavily in new animal exhibits designed to attract visitors, sometimes spending millions on enclosures for popular species. For instance, Edinburgh Zoo invested €20.8 million in a new giraffe exhibit, nearly double what it reportedly spent on conservation and research in 2019. These examples illustrate that many zoos, while promoting conservation rhetorically, often allocate more resources to enhancing visitor experience than to meaningful conservation work. This profit-driven approach calls into question the effectiveness of zoos in contributing in wildlife conservation. Lastly, zoos violate ethical principles and provide a misleading education experience. Putting animals behind glass or in cage teaches people that wildlife exists for our amusement. It normalizes the idea that it's okay to remove animals from their natural environment for our benefit. Worse, it doesn't teach a respect for biodiversity. It teaches domination over it. A study published in the journal Animals discusses how human-animal conflict in zoos, in human-animal interactions in zoos, conflict with ethical principle, potentially causing stress and behavioral issues in animals. Additionally, research by Freedom for Animals found that 44.1% of visitors to Chester Zoo reported not learning anything from exhibits, and among those who did, only 23% could recall factual information, questioning the educational efficacy of zoos. Real education comes from seeing animals by visiting a wildlife reserve, or supporting real field conservation efforts, or seeing animals in documentaries, not by watching a bored tiger racing behind the bars. In summary, zoos do not address the fundamental causes of wildlife decline. Their profit-driven models result in minimal contributions to actual conservation efforts, and they often compromise animal welfare and provide limited educational value. Therefore, we assert that zoos, in their current form, do more harm than good for wildlife conservation. Thank you. Thank you, the first speaker of the government team. Now let's proceed to the first speaker of the opposition team. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Shana, honorable judge, esteemed members of the government team, and respected audience. My name is Adinda, and I'm glad to be here today as the first speaker for the opposition team. I'm joined by my teammates. Willow will be the second speaker, and Mia will be the third speaker. We are here to say strongly that we disagree with the idea that zoo do more harm than good. We want to talk about all the good things zoos do, especially how they help protect wild animals. We believe that zoos are more important for keeping wild animals safe, especially since many animals are endangered for disappearing. Zoos aren't just for fun. They're also a place where people can learn, where animals are protected, and where the scientists can study about animals. The government team brought the issue of zoochosis, which is when animals in zoos show signs of stress. They describe that animals in captivity often show signs of anxiety and depression. They include behavior like pacing, rocking, self-mutilation, excessive grooming, and even consuming excrement. Behavior rarely seen in healthy wild animals. They say this happens because the animal can behave naturally in zoos. Although zoochosis can occur, it's not a universal reality. In fact, many modern zoos have many grand strides in creating environments that support animal physical and mental health. This institution prioritizes providing enriched environment that stimulate natural behavior, encourage social interaction, and offer appropriate physical and mental health challenges. They employ expert veterinarians and animal care specialists who are dedicated to animal welfare. In addition, the focus on zoonosis often masks and threats that animals face in the wild, such as habitat destruction, poaching, and climate change. Zoos can provide a safe haven from these dangers. Furthermore, framing zoonosis as an inherent consequence of captivity ignores the progress that has been made in zoo management and animal care. It also ignores the fact that animals in the wild also experience stress and abnormal behavior due to factors as food scarcity, predation, and competition for research. A study from University of Zurich confirmed that most mammals have a greater life expectancy in zoos away from the threat of predation and food shortage. But we believe that while animal welfare is important, zoos still have a vital role. Zoos today are important places that help protect wild animals facing extinction. For example, zoos play a crucial role in wildlife conservation by serving as breed centers for endangered species, facilitating genetic diversity, and providing a safe environment for species that are threatened by habitat loss and poaching in the wild. In short, zoos are not place of harm, but place of hope. If we truly care about saving endangered animals, we must recognize the critical role zoos play in their survival. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, Adinda, for the speech. Let's continue with the second speaker of the government team to deliver their arguments. Good morning, honorable judges and fellow opposition teams. Thank you for the explanation of the arguments. So, as we know, the topic for our debate today is that zoo does more harm to wildlife conservation. And we as the government team still believe that the motion is true. So, honorable judges, the first speaker from the opposition team has tried to tell you that zoos play a crucial role in protecting the endangered animals. But as we know, according to a study in 2023 by Miranda, zoos only spend an average of 0.1% of their annual income to biodiversity conservation. This is shockingly low. Especially when studies suggest that they should spend 10% of their income. The message shows that many zoos still do not care about conservation enough. They prioritize business instead. Meanwhile, the IUCN Red List shows that out of 77,000 assessed species, 22,000 of them are already threatened with extinction, with 85% of them are affected by habitat degradation. Meanwhile, zoos cannot tackle these issues directly. They will remove a handful of animals and out of their habitat and save them. We need to tackle these issues directly, not just putting new individuals while watching the ecosystem collapse. And by that, we believe that zoos are not always conservational tools, like believed by Born Free and many other studies that shows only 10 to 25% of animals, at least in the UK, that are in captivity are actually on the IUCN Red List danger. The rest of them, more than half of them, are actually on the least concerned section. This raises a serious question about where zoos funding actually goes. Rather than supporting genuine conservation efforts, much of the money appears to be directed towards profit-driven attractions, where zoos still maintain popular animals rather than the one necessarily in need of protection. Also, for the second point is that where the education impact of zoos alone can be replaced by virtual programs. And if the virtual programs did not work, actually there are many more options beside of that, which consists of in situ conservation, where animals are being protected in their own natural habitat. So we can still protect the animals and still not removing them from their natural habitat. And by that, we can protect the animals while also we can protect their natural habitat, which is the main issue of these conservation problems. Thank you. That's all for me. Now let's hear the arguments and rebuttals from the second speaker of the opposition.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable agitator and also organizer, hello debaters. Imagine a world where animals like California condor, Arabian oryx, or any other animals that are extinct, but thanks to the zoo, they are live until now. This motion claims that zoo do more harm than good, but here we stand firmly against the motion. As the second speaker, we will briefly rebut the government statement and argument, and then we will briefly delivering our three main arguments. First, the government claimed that zoo only treat symptoms, but the reality, the WAZA or World Association of Zoo and Aquariums, they contribute by funding over 350 million of US dollar to support the conservational wildlife. Like for example, they in 2022, the AZA, Association of Zoo and Aquarium, also donate over 252 million to support the conservational, such as habitat restoration, reintroduction program, and in situ project. The government also mentioned that zoo only mainly profit driven and focus on entertainment. But like I said before, the zoo, like Azza and Waza, is contributed by funding tons of money. Next up, I will briefly delivering our three main key arguments. The first one, zoo are crucial role by protecting and saving animals from extinction. Zoos serve as genetic reservoir, maintaining biodiversity and preventing extinction of the animal. For example, the western swamp tortoise was nearly extinct, but thanks to the Perth Zoo in California, they successfully bred the animals with over 2,000, 2,000 animals of individual into the wildlife. Next up, zoo educate people and foster conservational awareness. Zoo reach over 70 million of visitors annually each year. Program like Honolulu Zoo from the Honolulu Zoo in America engage children and family, inspiring them to support the wildlife protection. And the government also said that the zoo can be replicated with documentary and virtual reality. But zoo provide direct and emotional connection with live animal that documentary cannot be replicated. The third one, zoo enhance scientific research and rehabilitation. Zoo conduct vital research on animal health, behavior, and breeding to inform conservational strategies globally. Take an example of California condor, recovery from just 27 births in 1985, and today we have over 500 of that individual in 2024. Sorry. And the other example is swift fox and Pierre David deer have been also successfully reintroduced to the wildlife thanks to the zoo. For this reason, we believe that zoo do more good and harm to the wildlife conservation. Therefore, I believe that this motion should be rejected. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All right, thank you, second speaker of the opposition team. I now invite the third speaker of the government team. The time and place is yours. Okay. Thank you for your argument. Let me point out that how could it is correct? Because the opposition didn't mention the years when the funding is given. So is it still reliable? By proof, a study in 2023 by Miranda said that those only spend an average of 0.1% of their income on biodiversity conservation. And research in zoos inherently limited and often unreliable. Animals in captivity don't behave the same way as they do in the wild. Their movement is restricted, their social dynamics are altered, and they often suffer from stress. So zoo actually limits the conservation and actually becomes the beginning of conservation problems. And why does it matter? True conservation is not just about keeping species alive in captivity, but ensuring that they can survive independently in the wild and contribute to their ecosystem. If animals never return to their natural habitat or they do not survive, it means conservation failed in its ultimate goal. As we knew, the ultimate goal of conservation is to maintain the balance of nature and save species from extinction. So breeding them to live forever in captivity does not serve the purpose. That is not a conservation. That is a collection. Okay, as the speaker three, let me bring this debate into close by summarizing all of our arguments that we have argued for. And let me clarify it one more time that our team is directly against the ineffective methods, not against controversy. Our team does not believe that zoos are often portrayed as champions conservation of champions of wildlife conservation and education. And the truth is far more troubling. Deep down, zoos inflict more damage than benefit, both ethically and ecologically. Firstly, we have shown that zoos fail to address the root causes of wildlife conservation problems. What they do instead is preserve individual animals into an artificial enclosures, while only little can stop the ecological collapse happening outside their gates. Secondly, we expose how zoos are zoos more profit driven, often prioritizing people's interests or visitors over ecological needs, which that is truly limits the impact of conservation. Breeding programs are rare, limited, and rarely lead to actual reintroduction. They are more about revenue than real conservation. So their goal is actually to attract more visitors and get money instead of real conservation. And thirdly, and most importantly, zoos violate ethical standards and harm animals' welfare, provide a misleading education. Animals suffer from psychosis, which is a condition where animals develop repetitive stress behavior because their basic freedoms are stripped away. Keeping animals confined, performed, or touched by visitors is an exploitation, not an education. And yes, our opponents may argue that zoo raise awareness, but at what cost? The so-called education or rehabilitation comes from distorted displays of captive animals, not from the authentical or ethical learning. And we do have better alternatives like institute conservation, sanctuaries, nature reserve, or virtually like documentaries that could educate without harm. In short, zoos distract from real solution, profit of suffering, and mislead the public. It harms far beyond the good. For the sake of the animal and real conservation, we urge you to support our motion. That's all from the government team, and thank you. Thank you, the third speaker of the government team. Now let's welcome the third speaker of the opposition team. Please give your welcome to Soumya. All right. Adjudicators and fellow debaters, I stand here today as the third speaker from the opposition. My role here is to summarize our case and reinforce why zoos, despite their imperfections, continue to contribute net positive contributions to the wildlife conservation. Firstly, I want to make clear that we have mentioned the year AZA gave donations, which is 2022. It's really near and it's reliable information. And also, what about the destroyed habitats? The destroyed habitats is not zoo's responsibility only. You can say that in situ conservation do more good, but there are habitats that are destroyed, and climate change always evolving these days. So zoos can only save the species that can be saved. We fully acknowledge that there are ethical concerns surrounding zoos, surrounding some zoos. They have questioned the quality of education zoos gave, and emphasized that zoos trust the animals through confinement. But to say that zoos do more harm than good is to disregard the evolving role they play in today's conservation landscape. This does not do more harm than good. They conduct scientific research, protecting endangered species, and educating millions of people. These are not side effects. They are the essentials of mission of modern zoos. Our team has highlighted three irreplaceable roles that zoos fulfill, which are first, conservation. We have demonstrated that zoos play an important role in preserving endangered species by breeding programs and habitat support. The government has claimed that zoos only treat the symptoms, which is disgrading the zoo's efforts in conducting scientific research also, because our team has shown that zoos actively saving the species from extinction, which is more immediate and effective than the government's acknowledge. Without contributions from zoos, species like California condor would have gone extinct. Second, education. Zoos offer a unique and immersive learning experience that no documentaries and books cannot replicate. We argued that seeing animals up close builds emotional connections, which are essential for long-term conservation awareness and behavioral change. The government also stated that zoos mislead the public, which is speculative at best, because it does not invalidate the real-world education that zoos have had for years and years of existing. And third, scientific research. We stated that modern zoos are research institutions that help us reveal animals' behavior, health, and welfare. This research has directly contributed to both conservations in captivity and in the wild. The government has failed to challenge this argument, making it one of the strongest and unshakable points in the debate. Other points we want to highlight is that the government's arguments, while emotionally compelling, they focus on the potential harms and exceptions rather than addressing the broader systemic contributions from zoos. The opposition team, on the other hand, provide facts and evidence-backed arguments, which are conservation, education, and science, which directly contribute to the wildlife conservation and survival of wildlife. Even if we agree that some zoos have room for improvement, it does not outweigh the measurable good they contribute to species saving and public awareness. This debate ultimately comes down to impacts. Yes, there are imperfections, but they do not outweigh the measurable goods zoos provide through science, education, and conservation. With facts on our side and purpose in our stance, we proudly oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, all speakers, for the insightful arguments and rebuttals of today's debate motion. Now we'll move on to the reply speeches. First, I would like to invite the opposition team to deliver their reply speech. Please welcome Dylan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable educator, as the reply speaker, I will evaluate the overall debate on the motion that says zoo do more harm than good for the wildlife conservation. The key class is whether zoo primarily harm or help the conservational effort. The government argued that zoo cause harm by confining animals, are profit-driven with limited conservational impact, and provide misleading education. They emphasize animal welfare concern and question about zoo effectiveness. But on the other hand, the opposition presents zoo as an essential conservational partner. They highlight successful breeding program for endangered species, preventing them from the extinction. Extensive public education reaching millions and substantial funding for in situ conservation project. They also point out that modern zoo follow strict welfare standards and advocate them for reform rather than abolition. Looking at the evidence that are given, the opposition case is stronger. The government claimed that zoo only do treat symptoms like habitat loss, poaching, and more. But the opposition team giving a great example that zoo contribute over 350 million annually to the fight of conservation. Next one, the government said that zoo portrayed as profit driven, and again, the opposition given a great example of many accredited zoo contract that they given great data that show to contribute by funding a million of money to help the conservational protection. And the last one, about the education and welfare. While the government raised valid concern about stress and misleading message, the opposition showing data that modern zoo 70% of zoo visitors report increased conservational awareness after their visit, something that documentaries and virtual reality cannot replicate. Overall, the opposition present a well-supported and balanced argument, acknowledging zoo flaw, but also emphasizing that zoo are having a vital role to conservation, education, and also research. Therefore, based on the argument and evidence that are given, the opposition position that zoo do more good than harm for the wildlife conservation is more convincing to me. And I will believe that to say that zoo. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the reply speech. Now I will give my time place for the final reply speech from the government.
Honorable educators, let me tell you, as an observer, I can proudly say that the government team will win this debate. First, before, all of government team's arguments are stronger to oppose the opponent's argument. The opponent team keeps saying that zoos are there to protect animals and endangered species, but the fact is most of the zoos only their exhibits is only a place for those popular animals. They may have some endangered species, but we talk a global context. Most of zoos only had popular species in it. And before, the opponent team talks about zoocosis that also found in wildlife. But zoocosis, in definition, is a stress and behavioral issues found in zoos, animal in zoos. So they may there are may stress behavioral problems for animals in wildlife, but it's natural for them. So, and the other also, the opponent team said that zoos protecting animals because their natural habitats are destroyed and because of climate changes and many things. But the government team countered that uh, the real threats of animals is that is the real threats. That's the larger problem. So instead of putting animals in the cage behind the glass behind the bars, we should solve those larger problems like climate change and the destroyed habitats of them. And also the government the government says before that instead of putting animals in zoos, we can just leave them in natural habitats if it's a more natural form of their life. So we as the government team firmly stand by this motion that that the government team believes that zoos do more harm than good. You may have some good things about zoos, but the government's argument believes instead of those goods, the zoos do more harm to animals in wildlife conservation. I'm proud to be government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all speakers from both government and opposition teams for delivering such well-prepared and thought-provoking arguments. Today's debate on the motion, this House believes that zoos do more harm than good for wildlife conservation, has given us valuable insight into the ethical, environmental, and also scientific aspects of this important issue. Lastly, I would like to express my appreciation to our respected adjudicators, our teacher, Ms. Yuna, and the audience for their attention, and also the organizer team for the support throughout this debate. With that, I officially declare this debate session is closed. Thank you and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yeah.